Hey guys, it's Clay. I want to talk about G's concept of discourse, which we read for Wednesday. So for G, discourse is he calls it an identity kit, and a lot of people have picked up on that term in their conversation. We all learn ways of using language in the families that we grow up in, that we're born into. And those families share language and cultural practices from generation to generation. Um, G calls these our primary discourses. Secondary discourses, he says, we learn as we move out into the world, as we go to school or to place of worship or to a business or to maybe we join a sports team. Each one of these has its own discourse. So a discourse, capital D discourse, is a way of saying, being, doing, feeling. It's ways of talking, it's ways of acting, it's types of things that you do, identities. It's ways of feeling, ways of dressing. So think, for example, working at a fast food restaurant. You have to wear certain clothes. You have to say certain things, like "Welcome to Burger King." Would you like a Whopper meal? Stuff like that. But it also affects how you feel. So you might be unhappy at a customer, but your job is to be pleasant. So maybe someone's complaining and they're being really rude about their food or something. But your job is to say, "Oh, I'm really sorry that this happened to you. We'd be more than happy to take care of it for you. Let us get you another burger or whatever." So you really might not even care about these people, but your role, your identity kit in this social situation is to be happy and to be friendly and to be helpful, even though maybe you're having a bad day and maybe you're upset about something in your own personal life, but that's your role is to present yourself in a different way. Think about a job interview. We're very careful about job interviews. The types of things that we wear. We try to cultivate an identity as a professional or someone who belongs in this organization. We use more formal language. We greet people very carefully. We wear nice clothes. All these things that together they make up. We cultivate a kind of discourse there. Um, think about being a student. The kinds of things you do as a student, that's another discourse that you've learned. When someone asks a question, like a teacher asks a question, how many people have who's read Shakespeare? People put their hands up. Um, in the context of a classroom, that's what you do. You bring notes. You have backpacks. You are quiet and you listen when the teacher is talking. These are things that you learned over time. When you were a young child, some poor teacher had to teach you to not talk while the teacher was talking so that other people could hear. Someone had to teach you that you don't just blurt out the answer, you raise your hand to be called on. This is how we act in the classroom, but it's not how we act when we hang out with friends, right? That's another discourse, hanging out with friends. Discourse is about how we present ourselves to each other. One example that G gives in another piece that we're not reading in this class, he looks at this high school girl, and she reads a text in class and comes home and talks about it with her parents. And she says, when I think about it, what an offensive character that Gregory was the most offensive character. When I think about it, Gregory was the most offensive character. That's what she says to her parents. When I think about it, Gregory was the most offensive character. Later, though, when she's talking about it with her boyfriend, she says, what an ass that guy was. There's a big difference in saying to your parents, when I think about it, Gregory was the most offensive character, and then to your boyfriend, what an ass that guy was. They're both kind of expressing the same idea. This Gregory person is unsavory, a jerk, an ass, offensive. But there's other things wrapped up in that communication. So with her parents, she says this phrase, when I think about it, which is like expressing to her parents that, I'm a good student, I'm a thoughtful individual, I'm a good daughter. She's using a word like offensive, which sounds a little bit more intellectual than ass. It's got a certain tone of sophistication that ass doesn't have, or jerk doesn't have, or some other word. And but with her boyfriend, she's more immediate, maybe more relatable, maybe more cool when she says what an ass that guy was. We do these things all the time in our lives. All of us have multiple discourses, depending on the communities you're in. You've got a discourse for that you learned at home, and depending on what kind of background you're in, it's going to look a certain way. Um, I grew up in a white working class family where my mom didn't finish. I don't think she didn't finish middle school. It was not a home discourse of reading and other literacy practices like that, school-based literacy practices. Um, Other people, we have. If you're an African American, you grow up in a family that is using probably some version of African American vernacular English or Ebonics or Black English. If you come from another background where your family has some strong connection to an ethnic group, maybe there are practices there. Maybe your family has some uses some language, maybe Spanglish or some other, maybe some Arabic at home. We have lots of students like that at Wayne State. You may belong to some sort of religious organization, and there are ways that you've learned how to act and to talk to other people. If you are, you go to a church or a temple or a mosque, um, then you maybe have a part-time job. Maybe you were an athlete. You know, maybe you're certainly a student. One way to think about discourses is that they allow us to be recognized as a certain type of person. So, how do you know someone's a soccer player? Partly by what they wear, but also the way they talk about the sport. They know certain things about the sport. They have ways of interacting with each other. They're probably kicking, they might be kicking balls in spare time with each other. How do you know someone? How do you know someone's a lawyer? How do you know someone's a doctor? How do you know someone's a pharmacist? How do you know someone, is a police officer? It's not always how they dress. It's also sometimes how they act. And so discourses help us recognize who we are, what social roles we're playing, what socioeconomic status we have, what ethnic backgrounds we have. It's how we make assumptions about each other, but it's also how we present each other. And you can think about that best by thinking about things like first dates or job interviews, where we're very careful about how we present ourselves to other people. But also on a daily basis, think about what is it you're wearing and what does that tell other people about you when you go to class. Are you wearing slippers? And maybe some people literally come to class wearing like slippers and pajamas. Other people come dressed nice every day. Other people just wear whatever, like jeans and sweatshirts. What does this tell other people about who we are? This is what G is trying to get at. To understand language, we can't separate it from the other things, from our ways of dressing, of feeling, of acting. It's all interconnected and it's inseparable. So try to focus on those issues of secondary discourses. And let me know if you have questions. We'll be reading another piece later this week by Swales that talks about discourse communities. So until then, good luck, and I'll be commenting on your posts.